Please can you remind me if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm the host, Lori LeBay, and I'm also a daughter who has felt the pain, the disconnect, and the exhaustion when caring for a loved one. You see, my mom had dementia for 30 years. I was lucky enough, though, to also on that journey to find the joy, the love, and all the beautiful life lessons wrapped into the journey. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about talking with our guest today, who I will introduce you to shortly. But before I go there, I just always like to thank our listeners. You see, your likes, your clicks, and your shares have really spread the word of the work that we're doing. And I personally believe it's so important to be able to connect people to products, services, and tools along with stories of people that are like-minded, all trying to improve the world of dementia. And again, bottom line, that's what we're about. And we would love to have you join us. Even many of our listeners have become guests because they have stories of their own. So feel free to reach out to me at alzheimerspeaks.com. There's a big contact button. That's our main website. And just let me know what your story is, and we'll go from there. Now, I also want to mention three things that I think are really important. One is a Traveling with Dementia Airport Stories survey that a group that I'm on in Roseville, Minnesota, and the University of Minnesota have worked together to pull together. And it's an international survey, and we would love your help spreading the word of that. You can find that along with these couple other things I'm going to mention on our homepage on alzheimerspeaks.com. And the survey itself is for people that are diagnosed with dementia and traveling, and those that are their travel companions. We want to hear from both parties, and we're looking for the good, the bad, and the ugly that is happening so that we can try to gather that data and improve travel for people living with dementia. On our homepage, you will also find a graphic that's called Cruising for Caregivers. It's a webinar being put on by a friend of mine, Jennifer Fitzpatrick. She's amazing. And she has a couple more sessions left. She's been doing them since May, and they've been really well received. If you can't make the webinar, I would highly recommend you get her book, again, Cruising Through Caregiving. And let's see, and then there's the game Stall Catchers, where you can actually play a game and analyze real life data. How cool is that? So you'll be pushing research forward by playing a game. And many are starting to get groups that are competitive in different senior housing communities, libraries, schools, all kinds of things. So it's endless what you can do with Stall Catchers. But just go to alzheimerspeaks.com and you will find information out about each one of those. So let's get to our guest today. We are so lucky to have this woman with us. I had been talking with her earlier, and we are so in sync on so many levels that I know this is going to be a fun conversation. Her name is Wendy Wells-Chanampa, and she is a registered professional guardian with expertise in senior care. She is a certified end-of-life doula with Doula Givers. She's a certified dementia care practitioner and a certified dementia care trainer through the National Council of Certified Dementia Practitioners. Lots of titles, but it doesn't end there. She wears many hats, and she's also been trained as a certified PAC, which is Positive Approach to Care, which is a dementia care trainer through the TIPA SNOW program. And she is an author with the Alz authors, and her book is called The Unseen Gifts of Alzheimer's Disease and Dementia. The greatest of these is love, she says. So welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you with us, Wendy. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Lori, for having me on. I love what you do and what you represent.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm very excited to have you with us today. If you wouldn't mind sharing, have you been personally touched, I should say, within your own family or circle of friends by dementia? It's always nice for our listeners just to have a little background.
Yes. My father had Parkinson's and Parkinson's-related dementia. And in hindsight, I believe it was probably Lewy body dementia. And he passed away 2011. And I had the privilege of spending a lot of time with him, assisting with caregiving. And that was the closest thing to me. And just recently, my stepfather passed away, and he had been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment about 6 years ago. So he had progressed into some vascular dementia, fairly early stages, but as vascular dementia goes, he would come and go. Slow progression. And I've also worked in the elder industry most of my life, so I've had the privilege and honor of working with several people with dementia. And it's been a joy. It's been a joy. And yes, it is a heartbreaking disease, but I managed to find the joy and the love in those people.
Well, in your book, you've titled it The Unseen Gifts, and I think there are so many gifts wrapped in this whole, package called dementia. I think it's just kind of a unbelievable journey. I want to ask you before we kind of get into the book, because many people might not know, what the heck is an end-of-life doula?
An end-of-life doula is really very similar to a birthing doula, which some people may have heard of. It is a person who is there to assist the dying person in every aspect, whatever their needs are. As the doula, we will try and facilitate that. It's about honoring and respecting their wishes. And it's also about being there to provide the comfort and the education to the family and friends. So it's somebody in addition to hospice. It does not take the place of hospice, but as a doula, we work in conjunction with a hospice or even the doctor and just letting them know what's going on. Doulas do not provide the physical care, but we may see that somebody needs something and alert the hospice nurse or alert the physician. So we're trained to listen, to observe, and to really provide comfort and care for everyone, including the dying person.
Well, I think that is so needed, and I think hospice is great. Don't get me wrong on that, but to have a second level working with that's got to be phenomenal. I know for myself, when my dad was passing, hospice was there, and they were there quite a bit compared to like when my mom died, many years later. They weren't around as much. It was more of a phone call. It wasn't as personal from the family standpoint. How much are you physically there or reachable with the family as a end-of-life doula?
It is really up to the individual how much they need you. If when the time comes towards the very end, when people are sitting vigil with the dying person, I can come then. I can, relieve the family a bit, or even encourage and educate the family on how to interact with somebody during their final hours. I might come in 6 months before somebody passes. So then we can do some really beautiful things, like help somebody to write their own obituary. What's important to them? One of the things that I like to do is to really show somebody how much value their life had. To create a sacred space, to listen to the person, to allow them to go as deep into it as they want to. Okay, we can do things that will, like a legacy project where maybe we'll put together photos, or if somebody wants to write a letter to their daughter or a letter to their son, maybe there's people that they need to forgive. Maybe they need to forgive themselves. And all these things can, it just really depends on the relationship that is established and how far this person is willing to go inside themselves. It's about creating a good death. It's something none of us are going to escape. Okay, and if we can look at it and plan, when somebody, it can start right after a terminal diagnosis, or it can start 2 days before somebody passes. It's really entirely up to the individual and the family. And as far as, people with dementia, it can, from my own personal experience, no matter how much you know that this is coming, you're never quite ready. You're never quite ready. So I would say with any kind of terminal diagnosis, it's never too early to get a doula on board.
How do you find a doula?
How do you find a doula?
Yeah.
There is a list. There is a listing. You can go to, I'm certified with the International Doula Givers Institute, and you can go online to the doula givers, and they have a list of people that are certified in the area. There's also an organization called NEDA, N-E-D-A, and they, I have a proficiency badge with them. They also list people all over the country. And it could even be, I would find someone looking for a doula. I highly recommend that they make sure that they are certified, and even see if they can get references on that person, and find out a little bit, just as if we hire somebody to come into our home, we want to know what they're all about.
Oh, especially when you're kind of in crisis mode. I mean, that's not a time to add to the confusion and stuff there. Now, I would imagine there's a cost. Is that covered by insurance, or is that private pay, or how does that work?
It is definitely private pay, and the prices vary. Personally, I do it on a sliding scale basis because I would never, ever refuse anybody these services due to lack of funds. So it is on a private pay basis, and the cost varies throughout the country. You're going to pay a little bit more than you might pay a private caregiver.
Okay, well that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to also talk to you a little bit about being a dementia care trainer. And what do you feel is the most important thing that a caregiver can learn at some of these trainings?
Oh gosh, one of the most important things that I feel passionately about is go with the flow. Teepa Snow puts it this way: know your agenda, but don't show your agenda. I know that all of us as caregivers have a list of things we need to get done for the day, but it is so important that you dance the dance with them. To sort of paraphrase it, it is like you don't come in and give them a list of the 6 things you need to do today. You just roll with them and allow them to sort of lead the way. Let's get something to eat. Let's get something to eat, and then walk towards the kitchen with them. Not time to eat now, and it's not a forceful. Nothing should ever be forceful with somebody with dementia, because that will increase the chances of agitation or just a bad experience. So going with the flow and dancing the dance, those are probably my most important things I like to teach. And I teach role play. We do a lot of role play, and my students oftentimes give me the worst case. They will act out, because that's what they face. They face people who maybe are agitated and combative. So it's a matter of just trying to bring them back down, going with the flow. And if you become more of a follower in their eyes and a trusted friend, then the day is going to go a lot smoother.
Which makes a ton of sense, because nobody wants to be dictated to and controlled and things. They want to be part of the process. And I love what you said, that one of Tipa's saying, go with the flow, know your agenda, but don't show your agenda. She's really good with those one-liners that just hit home. And, one of the things that I learned through, my journey with my mom, and then doing, just talking with so many people around the world through the show and in different avenues and stuff that I do through Alzheimer Speaks, is really about, you had mentioned kind of stepping into their world, but really becoming more spontaneous, more respectful. And I think a lot of times we don't even look at what we're doing as being respectful or not respectful or dignified or not. We're just trying to get a task done. And so when we focus on that task only and not the person's response, when we're missing all those signals and signs they're giving us, or still reading them and still pushing it through, we're just elevating the situation instead.
Absolutely. Stepping back, taking a breath, and saying, okay, maybe we will take a shower in an hour. I'll try again. Or, let's not list off all the things that we've got to do. Let's just take it one step at a time. Allow yourself extra time. If you need to get to a doctor's appointment, it's very important that you allow yourself a lot of extra time so you're not rushing out the door. I have found over the years that people with dementia often have a sixth sense. They may not understand our words, but they will certainly pick up on our emotion and our feeling. If we become agitated and frazzled, guess what? They're going to become agitated and frazzled. So it's important that we present a calm front. Even if they're in crisis, a calm front can go a long way. Repeating what's bothering them, being empathetic. Being empathetic is so beautiful. That brings up Naomi Fields to me. I love the teachings of Naomi Fields. Really, really hearing what they're saying and being there in the moment. If they're afraid, it sounds like you're afraid. It sounds like you're afraid. What are you afraid of? Just tell me. And then offering that comfort, And of course, then we can divert. Then we can divert and lead them in a different direction. But let them have the feelings. I think that we all too often want to just stop the feelings. You shouldn't be angry. Look at all I'm doing for you. You shouldn't be angry. What's wrong with you? Well, we know what's wrong with them. We know what's wrong with them. So it's up to us to really hear their feelings. Wow, that would really make me mad too. I hear that you're angry. And I'm here. Let's see what we can do about that. Just being, like you said earlier, Lori, all of us like to be validated. All of us like to be heard. And that doesn't stop when somebody gets dementia. They still want to be heard. They still want to be seen. They still want to be a participant in life. And they don't understand what's going on a lot of the time. In the early stages, a lot of people do understand, which adds to more anger and fear and frustration. But they want to be heard. They want to have an opportunity to express their feelings, even at the end of life, which is something that I feel is so important. I mean, it's okay for us as caregivers to cry with them, to get angry with them and say, why is this happening? It's okay for us to have feelings. We tend to hide the feelings from those with dementia. Sometimes just being real and being authentic brings a whole new perspective, a whole new emotion to the interactions.
Oh, I totally agree. One of the things I think is funny when you were saying, about, empathizing with their feelings, recognizing them and stuff. And we do that all the time with our friends. We're right there with them. We do that all the time with our children. And yet when we're caring for an elderly person, so often if they've got dementia or not, we are focused on the task and not feeling. And it's like, why does that happen? Why is that shift? Because we tend to do it throughout our life. And then there's this shift. And I still haven't been able to kind of put my finger on it. Any thoughts from you on that one?
I think it's because we're dealing with so much stress ourselves. And if I just tell you what to do and I just do it, it's going to get done and we can move on to the next task. I think it's about, it relates back to the self-care, which is so important for the caregivers. Self-care is so important. And I think that sometimes, as you said, focusing on the task becomes the world and the life of a caregiver, whereas focusing on the person and taking the time to stop and hear their stories, even if you don't understand what they're saying, you can pick up on the emotion. You can pick up on the emotion. When language is gone, if they reach a place where language is gone, you can say, wow, that sounds really fun. Oh my gosh, that made you happy, didn't it? You know, I mean, it's like the caregiving is extremely difficult. And I think that that's what pulls us kind of into, let's do the task, let's get this done. When we're under any kind of stress, it's like, okay, I've got to do A, B, and C. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it done. And then maybe I'll be able to have that glass of lemonade. You know, I mean, it's just like, let's get it done. We know what we got to do. But if we stop and just enjoy the time with them, it'll flow much easier.
Yeah, and I think it flows much easier, not just for them, but for us internally too. And I don't think we give that enough weight or even slow down to recognize that we're a little bit more peaceful.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it's often maybe habits of correcting that happen. And I've seen this in my own family where you just said that. You just told that story. Well, you know what? He enjoys telling that story. He loves telling that story. And I'm happy to hear it again. I'm happy to hear it again because I see how much joy it brings him sharing it. And that's part of it all. Part of it all is letting them be heard, seen, felt, experienced, you know, because they're still there. They're still there. They may not recognize us, but they recognize the emotion. They recognize the love. They recognize the feelings.
Yeah, when you were talking about the repetitiveness, I know for myself, I ended up making a tool called Your Memory Chip because I wasn't the most gracious daughter because I was too busy focusing on my task list. And it's like I just needed it quiet so I could kind of finish processing things or doing or whatever it was. And I couldn't make a game of it. I couldn't see the joy and the contentment of my mom repeating that story. For me, I had to really pull back and go, okay, what's important? Because I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing this well in my mind. And so instead of my task list, my little checklist, being first and foremost, I decided it had to be my mom and 3 things regarding her. Was she safe? Was she happy? Was she pain-free? And when I focused on those 3 things first, I was able to see the joy in some of the repetitiveness. I was able to stay calmer, and I would do my task at a different pace or maybe out of order or maybe not even do something because I realized it didn't need to be needed. But what I needed, or so I thought, was to be busy, to look like I was doing stuff. So I had stuff on my list that really didn't have to be done, but I just didn't know what else to do. You know, busy is good, or so I thought. And, you know, the memory chip tool got me to realize that I could be a much better daughter if I just shut up and sit down and hold her hand, maybe even in silence. And that changed everything for me. But I had to get to a point where I was really beating myself up of not being as good or as gracious as I knew she deserved for me to be able to think of that. Because I really thought my checklist was the end-all, be-all. Everything on there was for her.
It was what you were supposed to do, you thought. It was what you were supposed to do.
It was about the things I was supposed to do, but not the importance of how you're making somebody feel when you're doing that or when you're with them. And to me, that was the life-changing moment for me of it switched my whole role, how I thought of it, and it shifted what I expected and what I looked for. So I started looking for more joy, and that was amazing.
I'll bet. And what were those 3 questions again you would ask yourself?
Was she safe? happy, and pain-free.
That's beautiful. I'm writing those down. Happy. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a. In fact, I can add it to the blog and stuff that we're doing in the memory chip. There's like 3 questions that actually go with it, and anybody can download that for free. And the first one, I'll just tell you what that is too. Is what do I want the person to know? And what I realized was it was much more than just words. It was our tone of voice. It was our approach. It was maybe the cologne I wore. It was all those things that helped her recognize who I was and made it a consistent routine and a comfortable one for her. And so that was really a big thing, because that opened my eyes to realize that even though they can't respond the way they used to, they're still taking everything in. They might not be able to process it, or they might be processing it differently. And so if I wanted her to remember me, or even just know that I'm a safe person for her to be with, I needed to give her more identifying markers to be able to grab a hold of. The third question is, what do I want to remember? Because I think people forget about what is it that they want to remember. And if they want to remember joy, well, then they have to be looking for it, and they have to be in the moment and able to create it. And so often I think we get, we're in this grief mode of all the things that we've lost, or we're in this worry mode of what's going to happen. And when we're in the future or the past, we're missing the moment to be able to create that. And so that's one of the things that I loved about your book, is talking about some of the gifts. So what I'd like to do is have you talk with us about what were some of the best gifts that you received from people we're caring for with dementia.
Probably one of the biggest gifts I've got is exactly that, being in the moment. Being in the moment. And really the authenticity. There is, when you are with somebody with dementia, truly, truly the best way to be is to be authentically you. Because, as I said, they have that sixth sense. So it's be authentically you and be in the moment with them. Stop. When I walk in to visit somebody with dementia now in my role, I will leave everything at the door. Everything at the door. Don't think about the appointment I have in 2 hours. Don't think about anything else. Just walk in there and be with them for as long as it takes. Be present now. Like you said, not worrying about the things that you have to do or the tasks, which are necessary. They are necessary tasks. But when you go in, just spend that time with them to hear them. And I really think that that's something that we can all benefit from. That's something that we can all learn. We can learn that they are so much further in living in the present moment. I mean, all the meditations out there today and the mindfulness, people with dementia naturally do that. They're naturally right there in the moment. And in that moment, you can have all sorts of feelings. Letting them have those feelings, being in the moment for us, people with dementia do not scan or skim what's on their minds. It comes out. It may not come out in the words. You may see it in their face. You may see it in their behaviors. But if they think something's funny, they may just take off on a hilarious laughter. If they think something's awful, you're probably going to hear about it. If you don't hear, you'll see it. I teach caregivers, how do you find out what makes somebody happy if you don't know the person and you don't have any family history? I said, watch, observe the look on their face. If pet therapy comes along and brings a little puppy dog and they pull back, they're not pet lovers, okay? And it's simple. When you walk outside, if their face lights up, spend more time outside. Read the body language. Listen to what they're not saying. And I think that that's, the intuitiveness, the authenticity, and being in the moment.
I love that. And, we've had Oprah and Eckhart Tolle, everybody talking about, being in the present moment. And a lot of people thought, oh, that's kind of a little woo-woo-y, but it's like it makes so much sense on so many levels that it's ridiculous that we haven't gotten this earlier and understood this, because we can dissolve, potential problems. We can de-escalate things. We can bring not only others more joy, but ourselves more joy when we are aware. And, I just had an interview with Liz O'Donnell, who wrote the book, Working Daughters as Care Partners. And one of the things that, she was talking about was that whole piece of finding balance and having a gratitude book. What am I thankful for? What went right? What do you think about a gratitude book for people who are dealing with caring for a loved one with dementia?
Oh, I think that would be a great idea, just a daily journaling, because that's a place where the caregiver can focus on and deal with their emotions, because there's a lot going on and it's a very tough time. And when you look at things you're grateful for, the things that are not exactly where you'd like them to be get smaller. They get smaller when you see how fortunate and blessed you are in the good things. And I think that all of us every day should keep a gratitude journal. I think that, is very productive.
I do too. I think especially in this crazy world when everything seems to go amok as soon as you turn the TV on, it's nice to know that the whole world isn't spinning at that fast of pace. And it could be an ice cream cone or a glass of wine on a hot summer day, or it could be your grandchild giving you a hug or blowing you a kiss, or just sitting in peace and quiet and just appreciating the stillness. I think, with my mom, one of the things that I loved was just sitting quietly with her. We didn't need words anymore. It was a gift just to be in one another's presence. And I think we've lost that in society. We we feel we have to fill in every second of silence with words. And there's great comfort in silence. If you just will let your engine rev down a bit and get out of high gear so that you can kind of see the beauty in it. One of your chapters in your book is entitled "We Are the Solution." Do you want to tell people a little bit about what you mean by that?
Okay, it's basically we are the ones who can change. The person with dementia can't. The person with dementia has dementia and they can't, change what they're going through. We can change our reaction to them. So we really do hold the key to a more relaxed environment, more, just as we talked about earlier, letting them have their feelings and going through things. We hold the key because we do not have the brain disease. We can look at things, back up, take a deep breath, and try and bring a new perspective, whether it is through our gratitude, maybe even sharing that gratitude with them. Oh gosh, it's such a beautiful sunny day today. We are so blessed to have this weather. Whatever it is, to be able to bring the tone to the interactions. I think that we as caregivers have that ability, and I should say that responsibility too. Because again, if we bring all the stress and we bring all the bad things, because bad things are happening. Dementia is a bad thing, and bad things are happening all around you, but it's up to us as the caregivers to see the good things, and to understand that person truly is who they were, only different. They're still there, and we can acknowledge, respect, honor, and love them right where they are. We make the difference. We can make the difference. I don't mean that if things are going bad, I don't mean that, that you can set the tone for an ugly day, because with dementia, as you know, it's very unpredictable. And sometimes things don't work out. But that's about doing the dance and being in the moment. We just as a parent, as a mother, I made mistakes. I made mistakes with my son, and he turned out okay. I'm blessed. So it's like, don't beat yourself up for when you have a bad day or you do something wrong. It's like, just get up and do it different next time. Learn from the bad experience and do it right the next time.
Well, one of the things that I liked even when I was reading your introduction is you have gotten certified through a variety of techniques and communities. And I think that is really wise, because I don't think there is a silver bullet. And I think a lot of times families think there's a silver bullet. Well, if I do it this way, it'll always be good. And it's like, no, it might work now, and it might work tomorrow, and it might even work for 3 months, but then it could blow up in your face and all change. And
absolutely.
It's, it really is about us not giving up, but just having the perseverance and the creativity to try something new. Because I think instead of giving up, if we can at least say, well, at least I tried, and maybe it didn't work, and maybe even try it 3 or 4 times to see, because it might not work once and it might work again another time. But again, always changing things up, but trying to get them to be part of the community, be part of the relationship, figure out where their comforts lie, what scares them, what causes them fear. And it could be simple things like the sun coming through the blinds could be creating a shadow that is making them paranoid, and you shut the blinds and that goes away. I mean, sometimes the things are very, very simple that we have to change to make them comfortable, but we have to look at the whole environment, when we're caring for them.
Right. If something's not working, let it go and try something else. And as a caregiver, you can even, challenge yourself that way and like, okay, today this worked. I'll try it again. Well, like as you said, tomorrow it might not work. Then you've got to come up with another creative idea. And that's where you can, as a caregiver, express yourself and pat yourself on the back for coming up with a creative way to get them to shower, for coming up with a creative way to get them to continue to self-groom, to source of tasks. If you can give yourself a pat on the back when it's a success and say, yes, that worked. You might have to tweak it a little tomorrow to get it to work again, but be able to walk away and say, okay, just because I've done it this way for 30 days and it's not working today, I need to come up with something else. I need to come up with another plan. And you can sometimes do that instantaneously at the spur of the moment by allowing yourself to be authentic, allowing yourself to try different things, to not always be right, and to not always have to have things go exactly as you planned, to give the flexibility to it, to really, as I said, allow that extra time when you have to go somewhere, allow that extra time if you know that there's something going to be going on that may be challenging for your loved one. Look at the big picture. Proceed that way and be willing to change for them.
When you were saying don't always, you don't always have to be right, I think that is one of the mistakes I see happen in families is it's perceived that many times the primary caregiver is always doing it right. They always have it right. And so I think sometimes sharing those mistakes with other parties in the family, because some of them feel very inadequate and unable to prepare because they think you have it right. And they don't want to let them down and go, this is a crapshoot. This is kind of like parenting 101. There's no great roadmap with this thing. It's a trial and error. Do it in a dignified fashion as you progress through it. And one of your chapters is entitled, Where Do We Go From Here? After that caregiving role ends, what do you recommend for people? And I know you're kind of going through that right now again in your own own personal life. Are you comfortable sharing any tips on that right now?
Yeah, I think it's about allowing ourselves to grieve. I think in my situation, I'm comfortable sharing that, even though my stepfather was declining and I knew that this could happen at any moment, when it happened, it was a shock and it was devastating because I will never see him again. And that's something that all of us go through, even though especially when someone suffers with dementia for so many years, there's a part of you that is relieved, but there's also the part of you that faces the reality and says, they're gone. And so I think it's something that is very personal to people, their grief, and everybody handles it differently. But I think it's very important that we allow ourselves to grieve, to pull back, to reminisce, to cry, to get angry, to, again, feel all those feelings and know that you're right where you're supposed to be. I really encourage people to get involved in support groups because there are people there that have been where you are. There's people there that can give you tips and pointers, and even if it's just a 1 or 2 liner, you can walk away with something. Those people that aren't comfortable with going into group settings, there's so many online resources available, so many, and people can really, it's time to, when somebody has left us, you need to deal with your grief, and there's a gift in that. There's a gift in seeing all the magic that this person brought to your life, seeing all the good times. I think that when we're grieving, it's easier than to focus on the positive rather than the negative. I think that it just becomes, we can look at our fond memories and see how blessed we were to have them in our lives. And even going back before the dementia, remembering the person that they were in their youth. And that's where that, again, creating those special moments with the person when they are in the midst of their dementia will give you fond memories of that. You may be just smiling through your grief at the way he combed his hair, or smiling about an incident that happened one day where he did something silly and you both were able to laugh about it. Or maybe you cried about it, but now you can smile about it and say, oh gosh, I'm so glad I was there for him. So where do you go from here is lean on your people that surround you and support you. Lean on them, let them hold you up, lift you up. Just receive what others want to give you, because you spent a long time giving. So it's time to just receive for a little while. And I don't think grief ever disappears. I just think we learn to live with it, and we learn to look back with a smile rather than tears. But we've got to cry the tears first, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I totally know what you mean. And when you were talking, you gave me a moment remembering my dad, and it just made me smile. It was something I hadn't thought about, but he was a tall man, so he had like this 8-foot couch, and when we were younger, he would lay on the couch and he'd put his hands over his head and he'd kind of take a nap, but he always had this hanky, and he would have this hanky and he'd run it up into his hands and then he'd pull it out the other one, and it was like this relaxing thing for him, and we always would try to steal the hanky from him. And it just made me chuckle thinking of what a silly little thing, but how precious that moment in time was. I think too, so often it's hard for us to accept or receive when others want to give to us, and we have to realize the gift that we got from giving, we're denying others by not receiving what they want to give us. And it really can be a selfish mode, and sometimes, granted, people need their space, and it can be a little bit too much, but learning to truly be gracious, I think is a very, very important piece. The other thing, when you were talking, it made me think of a another time in space when I was struggling with, there's so many losses with dementia, and I was really struggling with my mom and her dementia. And I remember pulling out this picture, and it was of my wedding day, and it was my mom, my dad, and I. And it brought back, my mind went back to reminiscing of when I got engaged, and Tom and I called them and how excited they were. And my mom called back 20 minutes later with the church, the hall, and the menu. And it was like, I guess we're having this big wedding, which we weren't planning on. We were just going to have a little thing in the backyard. But I loved that about her. She was organized. She liked to celebrate life. And I realized by looking at this picture, I was still trying to make her be that person because it was so important to me growing up. And then I looked at the picture again and realized nothing was the same. My dad was dead, my mom had dementia, and I was divorced. And how unfair was that of me to try to hold her in time when everyone else was moving and shaking and changing. None of us are who we once were. We appreciate our friends and our family as we get older, but there's something about dementia and aging where all of a sudden we feel this loss. And to those that are really struggling with grief, I say to them, you can't have great loss without great love. And that's a huge,
that's beautiful.
Because so many never had that to begin with. So consider yourself lucky to have those memories, even if they didn't last as long as you would have liked. You had them.
Yes, and what a gift.
Very important stuff, I think, in terms of reframing who we are and how we think and how we care. And this is a great book by Wendy. Again, it's called The Unseen Gifts of Alzheimer's Disease and Dementia. The greatest of these is love. And, you even talk in here, if I'm not mistaken, about unconditional love as well. And the ultimate love story. Can you touch base on that before we wrap up? Would you mind?
Yes, the ultimate love story. I've seen this, and I've seen this happen, and where somebody with dementia maybe does not recognize their wife anymore. In this, we'll just use, it's a man, for instance, that does not recognize his wife, but every day in the memory care, he's holding hands with one of the other residents there. And the wife comes in, and he's treating this other woman as if she were his wife. And what's going on is he's expressing his love for his wife to this other woman. And it really is his wife that he's loving. It's really his wife that he's loving. And how heartbreaking for the wife to see that. But I encouraged the wife to know that it was her that he was loving. He was still had the need to express his love, but it was her that he was actually thinking it was. And that the ultimate love is to really let go and let him have the joy that he can have in still loving his wife, because he can't focus enough to realize that this woman sitting beside him is not his wife. And it's really a huge, tremendous sacrifice on the part of the spouse to be able to let go, but it is truly unconditional love without limits, truly, because it's making it about their happiness and their well-being. And I realize that it is not an easy thing to do, but what a gift you can give that person to not be upset. And I've actually seen it where the wife has become friends with the girlfriend, just because she recognized how it was a gift to her husband who sat there lonely, thought he was with his wife. And I think that it's really a tough gift to give, or a tough gift to swallow, but it can be done, and it will bless the spouse that's giving it up. It really will bless the spouse. And actually the person with dementia.
Yeah, I think all parties, it teaches such a lesson. That actually happened with my own mom. My mom was in a nursing home. My dad had passed, and this man moved in, and my mom and him became very good friends. And I remember speaking to a caregiver group, and at the end I asked if there was any questions, and a woman stood up in the back, and she had 2 adult children with her. And I said, "Oh, do you have a question?" She says, "No, I just have a comment." And I said, "Okay, what's your comment?" And she said, "I just want to thank you for your mother." And I said, "Oh, that's sweet. Do you mind telling us why?" And she said, "Because she's in love with my husband and he's in love with her."
Oh, 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 and what wonderful gift.
And
What wonderful gift.
yeah, I get choked up every time I say it because it was like, what a lesson she was teaching us in that room at that moment.
Yeah.
She said she has given him a calmness. And if she wasn't there, this would have been so difficult for him. And that's all of a sudden I just thought, oh, what a wise woman. What a wise,
very wise, yes,
woman. You know, to be able to see that and to be able to teach her kids that. And she said, you know, we come a couple times a week and have dinner with them and join them. And she says anytime they're separated, they both are so anxious because they're looking for one another, because they give each other this calmness. And, you know, they knew they couldn't be there all the time, and they just recognized the gift of how nice it is that Dad's calm and he can interact with them, and you know, everything. There wasn't any fighting, there wasn't any anger. It was just always a really loving situation. But you know, she talked about, you know, really leading by example, and so many people didn't understand how she could do that. But when you witness, when your eyes are looking, you know, at those nonverbals and you witness it firsthand, you really can't miss it. It's just that we're not trained to look for those nonverbals, and I think we need much more education about being able to do those types of things with people. And and again, it's about their comfort. It's about, you know, are they safe? Are they happy? Are they pain-free? Because when they are, then we can be too. We can relish content.
Yes.
And I think that's a big thing missed in training sessions sometimes, really for families to understand when someone else is at peace, that gives us peace too.
What ultimate love. I mean, truly the ultimate love story with that woman, and her acknowledging and seeing that, and loving her husband enough to let him go and be experiencing joy, and truly being grateful for your mother. That's just a beautiful story that the daughter was able to see it, acknowledge it, and I'm sure it made such a big difference in the life of your mother and her husband.
Yeah, and the whole family, and I think really the whole unit my mom was on, everybody started to look at things differently from the moment she said that, you know, and it was just like, because it just took everybody back, like, how could you? And then she said, how could I not? How could I take that peacefulness from him? You know, why would I want to take that peaceful, you know, but it was really, like you said, a selfless act. Yeah, one that just kind of made wonderful, wonderful ripples. Well, Wendy, I so appreciate your time with us today here on Alzheimer Speaks Radio. And we have listed your email and website that people can get a hold of you on. Your website is seniorconsultants.src.com. And your email is a Gmail at wjchanampa@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for your brilliant insights and taking time with us today. Truly, truly enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Lori. It was just wonderful to talk with you.
I am going to just wrap up by doing a couple of shout outs here to the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. They are absolutely a fantastic organization. They really take a holistic approach. So diet, exercise, meditation, just go to alzheimersprevention.com and you will get loaded with information from them. Don't forget to check us out at alzheimersspeaks.com. And Purple Table Reservations, I want to give a shout out to them, purpletables.com. They are doing training with restaurants. They have an app where people can find restaurants that have become dementia friendly and taken some training, but we need a few more of them listed. So please pass that word. Just go to purpletables.com. Talk to you soon. Bye now.
Hi, this is Suzanne Newman, host of the Answers for Elders podcast and radio show. We are the North Star that guides you through the complicated journey of senior care with trusted experts in money, law, living solutions, and more. So join us on this station, your favorite podcast channel, or just go to AnswersForElders.com. Meet the Wayshowers who will help your journey go a lot easier.